Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some pretty spicy battles in the Open Ultra League featuring a level 50 Shundo SHELGON. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, SHELGON is a pure Dragon type Pokemon with the moveset of Dragon Breath, Dragon Pulse, and Flamethrower. It is a pure Dragon type, but a lack of a true bait move definitely is a limiting factor. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out XL SHELGON in action in the Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, leading Obstagoon into Giratina Altered, but bad news for the Obstagoon, this is a Dragon Breath Giratina Altered, which does mean that this is a neutral to slightly favorable lead for the opponent, as Dragon Breath is just incredibly oppressive even though it is only neutral in this matchup. Obstagoon will be able to make it 2-3 Night Slashes, but since the counters do absolutely nothing here, Giratina can actually tank 3 super effective Night Slashes and narrowly win the Zero Shield. Obstagoon continuing to farm, Obstagoon will be able to tank this Dragon Claw and make it to the 3rd Night Slash, but again, this is not going to be enough to KO. This will get the Giratina very low, but Giratina will be able to survive the damage. Giratina not wanting to risk a farm down, they're going to fire off the Dragon Claw. So the opponent is able to win the lead. This sets up an energy lead for Trevenant. So Trevenant with the 1 Shadow Claw head start, opponent thinking about it, and they're going to send in Empoleon. So they clearly do not have a good response to this Trevenant in the back. Trevenant full sending the Shadow Ball, and it connects. Big damage onto the Empoleon. Drill Peck will hit for super effective damage here. We see a no shield, and we see a switch into the SHELGON. In the back, it's Galarian Stunfisk, and this is really bad. SHELGON needs the element of surprise to land this Flamethrower. Do they respect it? They do not, and suddenly a win con emerges. Opponent does not respect the Shundo SHELGON, and SHELGON now in a position to make them pay. SHELGON looking to double shield and just Dragon Breath everything down, and shielding the Earthquake will seal the opponent's fate. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Moving into the next match, we see a very tough lead, Obstagoon into Charizard. Honestly, Charizard is a pretty big problem for this entire team, as Charizard does well into every single team member. Obstagoon will fire off the Obstruct right off the bat, debuffing the Charizard while raising the Obstagoon's own defense. Now this is quite handy because this means that Charizard is going to need 2 Blast Burns to KO here, and this is only a Dragon Claw. So the opponent not potentially realizing that a Dragon Claw will not KO after the Obstruct, and now Obstagoon is in a position to actually grab a shield from the Charizard. Charizard is going to play to the CMP tie. Very nice awareness there by the opponent, as they will be able to KO with the Dragon Claw, but they had to give up a shield to do so. In comes the Shundo SHELGON. SHELGON, is it going to look to shield here? Yes. SHELGON shielding up the Dragon Claw. Opponent is going to pivot into Cresselia, farming up with the SHELGON, and we see the switch into the Trevenant. Trevenant able to absorb the Moonblast that was aimed at that SHELGON, and now SHELGON has a lot of energy stored for later. Trevenant farming up and making it to the Shadow Ball. Is this going to be enough to one-shot the Cresselia? We see a shield from the Cress. Tough decision to make here. We see the shield on the Trevenant. Trevenant doing its best to try and get rid of Cresselia. Cresselia now on the 6th cycle. So Trevenant forced the CMP on the Seed Bomb, as unfortunately, this does mean that the Moonblast has been reached. But this does potentially set up a very nice Dragon Breath farm down for the SHELGON. SHELGON looking for the farm down. Opponent sends in the Charizard, potentially looking for a catch, but SHELGON was never planning to throw. In the back, it's Poliwrath. This might actually be doable. Can double Dragon Pulse do it? Dragon Pulse number 1 connects. SHELGON makes it to Dragon Pulse number 2. Will this be enough to KO? Poliwrath is bulky. It KOs. In comes Cresselia, and shiny SHELGON sweeps the endgame. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Obstagoon into another Giratina. Opponent save switches into Charizard, and again, Charizard is a big problem spot for this team. Obstagoon forced to stay in and go for the Obstruct. buffing its defense while debuffing the Charizards. Charizard goes for the Blast Burn. They'll need a second Blast Burn to get rid of the Goon. This Night Slash is going to do some very nice damage into the debuffed Zard. Zard commits the shield, and that's immediately punished by a Night Slash boost from the Obstagoon. Charizard gets a shield with the Dragon Claw bait. Charizard wins CMP over the Obstagoon, but a Night Slash is going to be lethal here, whereas the Dragon Claw will not. So Obstagoon is able to tank it and put pressure on the final shield. Charizard chooses to let it go. In comes the Giratina, but boosted Night Slash is going to deal massive damage onto the Tina. Firing off this Night Slash, that does half of Giratina's HP. Giratina cannot get the farm down, and they're going to fire off the last second Dragon Claw. Finally, the Obstagoon is KO'd, but the Obstagoon has now set up the Shelgon and the Trevenant to be in a very advantageous position. In comes the Shelgon. Shelgon able to tank the Dragon Claw in the back. It's a Registeel. Shelgon trying to farm up to the Flamethrower, but Registeel able to outpace. Shelgon commits the shield. It's a Zap Cannon bait and gets the debuff as well. Shelgon massively overfarming, switching into the Trevenant. Is this the Focus Blast catch? Yes, it is. What a very nice play. Trevenant, despite the shield disadvantage, in a very favorable situation, and the Shelgon has a massive amount of energy stored in the back. Shadow Ball is going to grab the final shield. They're firing off the Zap Cannon, and Trevenant can very comfortably survive this. Zap Cannon connects. We see the debuff. In comes Giratina. Giratina will lose CMP to the Trevenant. This Shadow Ball will be lethal. Switch Clock not quite yet up. In comes the Registeel, and the opponent concedes a match. Picking up a tricky lead in the next match, Obstagoon into Shadow Alolan Muck. Bit of lag there at the start. You're definitely happy to see this Muck on the lead and not versus the Trevenant, but still, only with resisted charge moves here, this is not excessively comfortable for the Obstagoon. Obstagoon buffs its defense with that Obstruct just to have its defense lowered by 2 stages by the Acid Spray. Going to set that defense back to 0 with a second Obstruct, and the opponent's defense is double debuffed here. Farming up, opponent sends in Giratina, and Giratina will be hit by another Obstruct. Giratina now debuffed. In comes the Trevenant. This is a Dragon Breath Giratina as well, so needing to keep that Dragon Breath damage away from the Shelgon. Committing the shield on that Trevenant. Trevenant farming up here. Giratina firing off another Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw will not be lethal, but Trevenant wanting to exit this matchup with as much energy as possible, trying to go for a Seed Bomb plus farm down play. Seed Bomb gets the Giratina low and gets the farm down. Very nice play. Being able to exit the matchup with the Shadow Ball is very nice. Opponent sends in Poliwrath. Oh my goodness. Opponent had the option to send in the Alolan Muck, but instead, they're potentially predicting that the Muck could be useful versus the final Pokemon. So they bring in the Poliwrath, they double shield, and in comes Shelgon. Opponent gonna send back in the Muck. Muck did store a charge move from earlier, and it's the Dark Pulse inflicting massive damage onto the Shelgon. Shelgon gets the farm down and leaves with the Dragon Pulse. That is big. Dragon Pulse gets the Poliwrath low, but the issue is the rest of the Pokemon are very, very low HP here. We see the no shield from the Obstagoon. Obstagoon counter goes through. In comes the Trevenant. It's a simultaneous KO, and that's a tie. Tough leads return in the next match, Obstagoon being greeted by yet another Charizard. Charizard probably being the most common Pokemon in the Ultra League at this current moment. Definitely uncomfortable when you're triple weak to it. Obstagoon, as always, is going to be going for the Obstruct, going for the Night Slash here, and losing CMP to the Charizard. A no shield from the Obstagoon as Charizard will full send the Blast Burn, and this Night Slash is going to hurt into the debuff Charizard. Charizard is going to no-shield. We see the Obstagoon boosting again. Obstagoon choosing to let this go. It's the Blast Burn, and that will be lethal. In comes the Shelgon. Shelgon looking for the farm down and gets it. So Shelgon now has an energy advantage and still basically at full HP. Opponent is going to send in Giratina. Giratina, of course, able to pace a lot faster, with Dragon Claw being significantly cheaper than Dragon Pulse. Giratina farming up, going for the Dragon Claw, but losing CMP to the Shelgon. Shelgon able to grab the shield from the Giratina. We see a shield from the Shelgon here. Shadow Claw's not going to do a lot of damage, so it looks like the Giratina will... Oh no, they don't have to throw! I was hoping that they were going to have to throw, but they do not. Shelgon at the 2300 CP, just not tanky enough. And Trevenant will be hit by back-to-back moves from the Giratina. Giratina goes for the Ancient Power at the last second. It's a Poliwrath in the back. And unfortunately, this is just looking like it's game over here. Firing off the Seed Bomb into the Poliwrath, as Poliwrath can very comfortably make the Ice Punch. Poliwrath overfarmed massively here. Poliwrath, are they running Scald Dynamic Punch? Wait, this is a win con here. Going for the Seed Bomb, shielded by the Poliwrath, and the Poliwrath loses. You have to run Ice Punch in the Ultra League, and this trainer finds out why. Dream Lead in the next match, Obstagoon into Trevenant. Opponent save switches into Lucario, and we see a counter switch into Shelgon. May have meant to go into the Trevenant there, as unfortunately Shelgon does not do particularly well here. Shelgon will be able to grab a shield from the Lucario, but all Lucario has to do is shield once, and it's going to farm down, exit this matchup boosted, and with a massive amount of energy. That is definitely not ideal. Going to send in the Trevenant, but this is a tough call. Are they baiting, or is it the boosted Shadow Ball? Commits the shield. It's the power-up punch bait, and now Trevenant is going to have to double shield, and after this, will be able to farm down. Opponent gives up switch. Whatever they have in the back does not want to see a Trevenant up energy. Trev goes for the Shadow Ball. Opponent is going to commit the shield, but all that does is just set up their Trevenant to get absolutely crushed by the Obstagoon. Opponent definitely would have been better off just no shielding the Trevenant and trusting in their closer. We're now going to see Obstagoon at the back-to-back Night Slash just able to get rid of the Trevenant, so the opponent still has a very low health Lucario and whatever the Pokemon is in the back, and it's a Toxicroak. Toxicroak will be hit with the Night Slash. This is resisted. It's not going to do a ton of damage, but Toxicroak definitely not the tankiest. In comes Trevenant. Trevenant will need to survive a Sludge Bomb here. Sludge Bomb only hits for neutral. Trevenant able to survive. Gotta watch for the catch and the one-turn wait. Beautiful execution. And the opponent concedes the match. In the next match, Obstagoon is greeted on the lead once again by Charizard. Considering the backline, this is where you want to see the Charizard, but still really not a great spot to be in. As always, Obstagoon going for the Obstruct, looking to get a debuff onto the opponent while buffing their own defense. Opponent is going to save switch into Cobalion, resetting the debuffs as the Obstagoon counter switches into the Trevenant. Trevenant will be able to tank the Stone Edge. We see some lag. Oh, that is definitely not ideal. And unfortunately, the lag is going to cause some less than optimal timing. Firing off the Shadow Ball into Cobalion. Cobalion able to withstand that damage. I believe this is another Stone Edge, so we will see a shield from the Trevenant. Trevenant gets the farm down. Let's see. Charizard does win CMP. Is the opponent going to just bring in the Charizard and fire off the Blast Burn here? Yes, they are. And that is very unfortunate. Trevenant is going to let this go, but a mistake from the opponent. That was not Dragon Claw range. And now Trevenant, without giving up a shield, is able to get that shield back. A very unfortunate misplay by the opponent, going for the Night Slash with the Obstagoon, but as always, losing CMP to the Charizard. Blast Burn does massive damage in the back. It's Virizion, and now Shelgon is going to have to clutch. Virizion is extremely spammy, and Shelgon only has nuke moves, so this is going to be tough. Shelgon will commit the shield here. They're firing off another Sacred Sword. Shelgon not going to be able to make it to another charge move. Just has to hope that Virizion no shields the Flamethrower here. Flamethrower does get no shielded. Maybe there's a chance. In comes the Charizard, but the Charizard has energy. Dragon Claw will KO, and unfortunately, I think Charizard is just too healthy. Going for the Obstruct, trying to stay alive. These wing attacks, getting the Obstagoon low. Obstagoon gets farmed down, and that's game over. Hopping into the final match, hitting Obstagoon into Giratina. Opponent save switches into Cresselia, and Cresselia will be answered by Trevenant. In the Zero Shields, with an energy advantage, this is honestly not terrible for Cresselia, as Cresselia is typically able to make 2 Moonblasts. Shadow Ball hits for massive super effective damage, but Cresselia will survive this deep into the red health and be able to make the last second Moonblast. forcing switch or shields from the opponent. So as we see there, Trevenant also gets its attack lowered as well. That is definitely not ideal. In comes the Tina. Trev gonna farm up 5 Shadow Claws and play to the CMP tie. Very, very nicely done there. That way the opponent is not able to farm down, so you just no shield here very comfortably. They're going to fire off a move. They actually go for the Ancient Power of all things. In comes the SHELGON in the back. Oh no, this is just game over. There is a Charmer. The team that is ABA weak to Charm has finally found a Charmer, and this is an absolute nightmare. Going for the Obstruct, but things are just looking incredibly bad here. Going for Obstruct number 2. Opponent, they're going to actually shield a misplay from the opponent. Obstagoon now going for the Night Slash into the double debuffed Sylveon. Sylveon double shields and throws energy. Opponent potentially letting the Obstagoon back into the game here. In comes the SHELGON needing to land the Flamethrower. Opponent switches into the Giratina and they reset the defense debuff. Back in comes the Sylveon. Come on, SHELGON. We need this Flamethrower to KO. Flamethrower gets the Sylveon low. Sylveon with 1 HP gets the win. All in all, SHELGON is a Pokemon that could definitely use some love in the moveset department. Having access to only nuke moves really does hold it back, as you can see in a lot of matchups. Unfortunately, even if it's type neutral, it ends up turning into a negative matchup just purely based off of pacing issues, where Dragon Pulse and Flamethrower are both not the cheapest charge moves to get to, and as we saw, even going up against something like the Virizion just massively able to outpace. So I think the SHELGON could definitely be an interesting candidate for a potential move update in the future, as it would definitely appreciate a bait move. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.